welcome to episode 234 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian with 16 years experience, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. Today's episode is being recorded early as I am away, so the shout-outs and the mailbag will wait until next week. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me either on Facebook, on Twitter, my handle is @LMS_United, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. Friends, be sure to listen to episode 224. I announce a new sponsorship with Literati Book Fairs, and now is a chance to hear from one of Literati's book fair veterans, Caroline Carr. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hello there.
You have already scheduled 2 Literati Book Fairs for this next school year, and you're on summer vacation right now, so that's incredibly efficient of you. Can you tell us when are your upcoming Literati Book Fairs?
Yes, of course. I have one in December. It coincides with my school play. The parents are already coming, so that's one. And then the second one I have right before summer, and it coincides with my choir concert. Also, I have people coming to the school already. I never do it alone. I always try and schedule it around a school event.
Well, and you're the expert. What's the sweet spot in terms of how long your book fair lasts? So when you have a Literati Book Fair, from the moment it shows up, can you give us an idea of how many days do you have active sales going on?
Well, I do in-person fair for a week, but I do an online fair, I think a week before and almost 2 weeks after. And I get some on there too, which always surprises me and delights me. So I get most of my sales that week, but a few online as well.
So it's generally like when you have the product, this is a full week that you're set up. And are you set up in your library space?
I am. Yes, I am.
Well, and I know that for some reason, there's so many pros and cons. I was very fortunate because across from my library, when I was teaching my elementary kiddos, was an auxiliary gym.
Oh, there you go.
And so, and we actually set up in the auxiliary gym across the hall, and the weather was nice. So the kids, instead of going to that gym, they would go outside, and it all worked out well. But I'm so curious because, I'm always stressing about making some money from the book fair, because the reality is it isn't a necessity for most of us. It's something that we do to supplement, and sometimes it's a considerable amount of our budget. When it comes to redeeming your profits with Literati, tell us a little bit about your experience and what's worked best for you.
Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I switched to Literati, because they partner with Follett. Follett, as you know, has pretty sturdy books, and they come pre-processed. So it just saves me time. I can choose the pre-processed option, and you get more money if you choose a credit instead of cash. And before I never would. I'd always choose cash because I didn't want the kind of flimsy books. But with Follett, I totally can, and I do. So I make my dollar stretch as far as possible.
Is your card catalog linked with Follett?
It is.
So you could,
yeah.
So for me, the added bonus is that it's almost like you can skip that step of having to check and see if you actually have the book, or
exactly.
Because everybody's on the same page when it comes to, do we already have these books? And you obviously have your processing preferences already on file.
Yeah.
So it just, work smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
And Literati for life.
Literati for life.
Caroline Carr, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Very welcome.
Tune in to hear all about Literati and their generous offer. Librarians who book their first Literati Book Fair for this upcoming school year and mention the code UNITED will receive a $500 gift card from Titlewave. As always, there's a link in today's show notes. And now a word from our sponsor, Capstone. Capstone is an innovative publisher and education technology provider of children's content for school libraries, classrooms, and at-home learning. Home of the award-winning PebbleGo research database, Capstone has a passion for creating inspired learning and intellectual curiosity in children, and I'm so excited to be working with them. I'm also grateful to Capstone for their commitment to support the podcast in Season 5. They are offering listeners of School Librarians United a very special discount. Visit shop.capstonepub.com and use the code UNITED to get $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and Capstone interactive ebooks. That's code UNITED for $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and ebooks on shop.capstonepub.com. And now for today's episode, State Librarian of the Year, and my conversation with Rhonda Jenkins. Rhonda Jenkins, welcome to the podcast.
Great to finally meet you, not only in person this past week, right, or a week ago, but now to listen to you and be able to be here is fabulous.
Friends, Rhonda wins the prize for most patient. and I want to apologize again and again and again because, friends, when you drop the ball and you realize you dropped the ball, it was brought to my attention by one of your colleagues, Rhonda, that they're like, hey, you should interview Rhonda Jenkins. I'm like, I already have. I know I have. And I'm like, oh. So, friends, Rhonda and I started exchanging DMs on Twitter. And I actually went back and found the Twitter and the date because it's all time-stamped. And I said to Rhonda, thank you so much for the opportunity to share your expertise with listeners. Let's look at March. Let's look at March. Famous words, because, this is going to be fun. And the timestamp is February 11th, 2020. Oh, I am so sorry.
It's all good. We understand, definitely, right?
I know what I was doing in March, and the world had gone sideways. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing you don't hold a grudge. Thank you for joining us, albeit 3 years belated. So we have more things to discuss now, thanks to the pandemic. More so than even back in February of 2020, a lot has happened to you, especially. This is very exciting. Let's give everybody some context. Rhonda, let us know where you are in the world. Tell us about your library and tell us a little bit about, friends, we are on summer break right now, but Rhonda, if I were to come into your school during the school year, what would I see?
Okay, so let me start back. We are in Midwest, in Naperville, in Illinois, in Naperville, and I'm at a school called Oliver Julian Kendall. We just say Kendall for short. And I am one of 21 elementary schools in our district. And we have 6 middle schools, I believe it is, and then 3 high schools, all with librarians too. So,
wow. I mean, it's like you've won, like that you've arrived. You've arrived and you have what the rest of us want. I mean, do you realize you have what everybody wants?
I do. I really do. We really do, because it's such a large district. We're not going anywhere. We know that because they need us, right? So we're set to go.
So for context, both Rhonda, you and I are probably only about 6 or 7 hours apart. I know we saw each other at ALA just a couple weeks ago. But in the case of the Metro Detroit area, we have lost population, I think, every year since sort of the automobile industry sort of peaked in, I want to say, in the 1950s. We had sort of our peak population in the 1950s. And really, ever since the 1950s, we have just lost, our student enrollment has gone down and declined. every single year, which means that our state funding for schools has gone down every year. And so while Rhonda is sitting on a fantastic situation with librarians in every building, I am the only librarian in my district, and that's not unusual for a district to have a librarian who then oversees all the schools. And wow. So, Rhonda, I'm so grateful that you're here today. You teach elementary kids. And, what I didn't appreciate is just how many other roles you had worked in the schools prior to becoming a librarian. Would you give listeners an idea of all the other things you did as an educator? And then what was that sort of light bulb moment, that eureka, that had you say, you know what, I want to be a school librarian?
So I actually started off as a one-on-one aide in an elementary school for a student with cerebral palsy. She was confined to a wheelchair. And as I watched the teachers, and I thought, I should go back to school and do this thing, right? And so I did. I went to school and I became a teacher, and I started off teaching fifth grade, and I was in fifth grade for 5 years in the same district, which was great. And then I became a third grade teacher, and I was a third grade teacher for 2 years. And then I moved to high school for 5 years. I was a reading specialist at the high school. And then I came back down to third grade at another school in the district. And after that, I had one student whose mother became a principal. And she told me, she said, I will do whatever you need to help you become a librarian for my school. So I thought, oh, well, that will be great. So she encouraged me. And then, I knew it was a position that I would love, because it really is the marriage of everything I love to do. Teaching, students, books, technology, it's all right there, So that was my journey.
You're sitting in this fantastic situation. You have an administrator who supports you. That's an absolute gift. You're just, oh my gosh.
And then actually I ended up not working for her because she decided, you know what? We're probably too good of friends to work together that way.
I do respect that, because I did work in a building where a friend of mine was going for the principalship, and I wrote their letter of recommendation. And it was like, whoa, like I just recommended my coworker to become my principal. And you're right. It does. You can't ignore the fact that you are friends first. And it really does sort of create a dynamic that you would otherwise not have.
Right, exactly.
And on some level, you want to remember that you are professionals and you're at work. I'm so grateful that you and I connected. And I apologize for the delay. But friends, we've got so many more things to discuss now since the pandemic happened, because the title of today's episode, State Librarian of the Year. Rhonda, that's an amazing accomplishment. In 2022, you were the recipient of the Illinois Association's Librarian of the Year Award. You were chosen to be Librarian of the Year, not School Librarian of the Year, not Public Librarian of the Year, but just the librarian for the entire state of Illinois. That is just monumental. And I'm sure that you're just, I don't know. Do you sometimes pinch yourself and say, I can't believe it?
Absolutely. Sometimes when I think about it, when I first received the letter, because I didn't know. And when I received the letter, an email from the person saying they were from ILA and wanted to let me know that I had been nominated, I'm like, what? Wait a minute, what? Wait. Not even nominated, but that I won.
Oh my gosh. So you didn't even know you were in the running.
I didn't even know. So it just makes it that much more humbling, because I just love what I do. And to be recognized on that kind of a scale is just mind-blowing.
Well, and I know we didn't go through and double check, but I'm sure on some level you have checked. So, Rhonda, am I correct that it's not customary for school librarians to win this award? It typically goes to like a public librarian. Can you give us some background?
It does. As I look back, and not only that, all the other people that were there, that were at the award ceremony anyway, that were receiving this award and that award. Some were students because of something outstanding that they had done, but the majority of them were public librarians. They were public libraries that were doing all that winning. And so I'm thinking, that is amazing. And then me, I was the last one. And they all, stood up for me. It's like, oh my goodness. I'm like, that was, I still smile. My daughter was there to celebrate it with me. And it was just awesome.
I think what's remarkable is that, you could have won this during the pandemic because, forgive me, we're going to be talking about some of the things that you did during the pandemic that really did raise the profile of just how vitally important school librarians have been, and especially during the pandemic when so many of us were teaching virtually. But to be able to receive your award in person?
That was, again, another one, right? Yeah.
So, friends, I have the benefit, and if it's okay with Rhonda, we're going to include her, the letter that announced her award, her winning this award, because what it has done is really highlighted there wasn't one thing that you did. There wasn't two things that you did. You have been building up to this point. This is, I want to call this a Lifetime Achievement Award, but it kind of feels like that. Like, this, you didn't have to do all these phenomenal things in one calendar year. They looked at your sort of like your magnum opus. They looked at your whole body of work and said, this is a phenomenal librarian.
That's my friend.
Let's go ahead and start off talking about the fact that you are incredibly vitally important in the leadership of your district, because it is an enormous district. Now, I believe Chicago is the largest district, and then there are two other districts between you, but then you are the fourth largest district in Illinois. Wow. So let me ask you, because the first thing on this letter recognizing all of your accolades is that you are part of your district's library leadership team for all of the librarians, and there are many of them. For me, there's one librarian. For you, you're part of a very significant team of 32, 33 at this point?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So how do you make sure that in a time like this, that all of the librarians who are part of your cohort, part of your department, how do you make sure everybody feels supported?
Okay, so what's really beneficial about that, it's a rotating kind of an assignment. And so during that time, I did have it for we were on for 3 years. So, and now we love to share that wealth because it's overwhelming, right, in such a large district. But when I was there, we met regularly, all of the leaders, the leadership team, and we just kind of hashed out things that were important to us. I mean, we didn't take no for an answer most of the time. We were like, no, this is important. We need this. We should do it this way. And, sometimes we could win it, and sometimes we had to compromise a bit, but compromise is still a win, right? But there were 4 of us on the elementary level together. And so we would also meet in order to share things. And then the middle school would meet and the high school would meet, and then we'd come back together and just really support each other and support the rest of our colleagues. So.
Well, and forgive me, because I know that there are a lot of egos. Librarians, we are human, and we're fiercely proud of what we've done. And so I can appreciate that when you do have an opportunity to work with other librarians, there is a great deal of ego that is behind the work that we do. We're fiercely proud of the things that we've accomplished in our own spaces. Can you share with us, what were some of the things when you were in the leadership team? What were some of the things that came up that were concerning to your team when you were sort of leading this group? When you had to what fires did you have to put out when you were in charge of this group?
It's interesting, Amy, because I wouldn't say that we had that much trouble amongst ourselves. It was the issues that we had to deal with, right? The one big issue that we had was trying to ban books from the library by parents. So we needed to establish our guidelines for that. And whatever the steps that we have outlined in our district board information and also in our guidebook, we had to follow. And people can't just tell you need to take this book off the shelf. There's a process. And we just had to figure out ways to kindly tell parents that so that they would stuff.
So now I have to ask, does your district have a single library sort of handbook by which all the schools are sort of on board? I mean, because when I think about when you're dealing with smaller districts, it can be very difficult because you're feeling like, I know in my district, I'm the only librarian. So, and I would have to feel like I'm sort of speaking on behalf of the other schools. But in this case, you have a team that can be part of the process and make sure that it's implemented with fidelity. And that's key because you've got to have everybody literally on the same page when it comes to banning books.
Yeah, we definitely have the one guide, one whole manual, and we all live by it. We've revised it recently in order to make it more up to date, but now it's where we need it to be. So it's...
Oh, I envy that team. I really do. I don't work on a team. I wish I did. And it sounds wonderful. So you've been cycled off of that and you won't have to take on that leadership role again for a while, but you weren't done there. Because when you look at this nomination, you were busy not only at your district level, but also at your state level. And can you give us an idea of what kinds of things you did to lead librarians in the state of Illinois? Because, yeah, that's fantastic.
We do have an Illinois Association of School Administrators aisle. It's called aisle in Illinois. And so Natalie is my friend. She was always encouraging me, Rhonda, you need to get involved. You'd be so handy with all this. You should get involved. And so from her encouragement, I will. So I was on the steering committee for the conference for a couple of years. And there's a conference in October of every year. Sometimes it's up here, sometimes it's downstate. So being on that steering committee was another awesome experience because it's a lot of work that people don't understand, right?
I'm a coward. I've been on a steering committee, and it's like planning a small wedding. And there's so many moving parts. And I know there are a lot of listeners tuning in right now who have also been on their steering committees for a conference. And there are a lot of things that have to be considered. I'm curious because you do also have to switch geography because of the shape of your state. So, that also does make things very interesting. But you also have an interesting relationship with your ISTE affiliate.
Computing educators? Yeah.
You are a liaison between the librarians and the computer education community.
Yes. The Illinois Computing Educators, the ICE, they did have to change their name once before too, because anyway. But yeah, so that was in effect, and then again, COVID was the thing that kind of blocked all those conferences from happening. So it just kind of got put on the back burner. But I still receive emails, so there to give my support when necessary.
I do think that it's important because there's so much that overlaps. I know that because we would go to our ISTE affiliate, and in the state of Michigan, it's called McCall. And there's the school librarians are always well represented because we're always, like many librarians around the world, we have to wear many hats, including that ed tech component. And find that there's that Venn diagram of librarians and ed tech specialists, and we all find ourselves being pulled in those directions. But it's really important that when you've got librarians working with that organization as well, they see just what a partnership we have with our ed tech specialists.
And not only that, when librarians attend, there are sessions that they could be a part of.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just not all tech, which, is important. But when it still focuses on the library aspect of it, it makes it more convenient for everyone.
Oh, I totally agree. And, so having that that connection between your ISTE affiliate and your state organization, I think that's fascinating. Were you ever did you ever present at your ed tech conference?
Yes. I presented at the ISLE conference several times. That's actually where I first met John Shu. You know Mr. Shu, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes, of course. So that's where I first met him, and we're just, good friends since then. But I've also presented at ICE before, and also at Illinois Reading Council.
Oh, wow.
IRC. Right.
So let me ask you presented at the Reading Council. Do you remember what you presented about?
Oh, wow. It's been a while. Let's see. I'm sure it was library related.
Right, because your audience would have been a bunch of reading specialists, but you had been a reading specialist, correct?
Right, correct.
So now all of a sudden you're presenting as a school librarian who used to be a reading specialist with an ed tech background. You're sort of covering all those bases and being able to identify with the challenges of the people in your audience.
Right. And relating, right? Because they want to know how to do it, not why I should do it. They want to know, well, how did you do it? Because if you could do it, I can do it, right? And that's the truth. If I can do it, anyone can do it. So,
well, and I know I sound like a broken record, friends, but when you appreciate that how we get to where we are today, we are sort of the culmination of all those lived experiences. It's not that anything has been wasted. It's not like you were on the wrong track. It just all comes together and creates who you are. I think that's fantastic. Tell me about the Monarch Award.
Oh, yeah. That was an awesome undercommittee that I was on that committee for 3 years. I think it's a 3-year on, and then you can rotate off, right? But Illinois has 2 awards that children get to nominate. There's a Bluestem, and then there's a Monarch. And the Bluestem is for 3rd through 5th, and the Monarch books are from K to 3. So every year there are hundreds of books that are nominated, and then the committee kind of tones them down. I think we come together and we all have to read 100 books. Well, we're assigned to read at least 50 of them all together, so we can decide which ones we vote for. And then we come together on those 50 and then choose the 20 for the state. All the students in Illinois would then read those 20 books, either being read to because kindergarten through 3rd, or the librarian would read them, their classroom teacher or whomever, but they would then vote for them at the end of the year. So the voting takes place in around February, and then it's announced which one the students of Illinois chose as their favorite.
Aw, I love that. And, when states do, book awards, everybody does something a little different. But getting the students' buy-in really does make it authentic, because then they find out, because they're still in school when the winners are announced, correct? Correct. And these books all become part of your collection.
Yes.
And then your students are like, I picked that one. That one won because I picked it. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and they really love it, too, because when they have one that they really, really love and it wins, it's even better. But if it's another one that they liked sort of and it won, then they're still okay with it because, oh, yeah, I like that one, too.
I could see this really becoming like a public speaking activity, because your students then become like advocates. They can sort of lobby for the book that they want and try to persuade their classmates to feel the same way.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, friends, I'm going to make sure that we include links in the show notes to these, because again, when we talk to a listening audience like we are right now, there's no reason why we can't implement something like that in our home state, or even do this on a building-wide basis. That would be lots of fun. You met Mr. Shu, and this was prior to the pandemic. And so, friends, for those of you who are outside the United States, for many, many years, Mr. Shu, as he is called, was spokesperson for the Scholastic Book Fairs, and sort of was the face of the Scholastic Book Fairs. And he brought an energy, and a lot of times you'd see him promoting things. I know he came to our state conference before the pandemic, but you did something that I watched it because it's on YouTube, friends. So Rhonda, you got to be on, was that a Book Joy Live filming? Tell us about, this is a silver lining to the pandemic, correct? And tell us what happened when John Chu, I assume he called you up?
Yeah, he called or he texted me and he says, would you like to be on a Book Joy Live with me? I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but sure. Of course, John, you asked me, I will do it. Right? So it was the first one, I believe, was with Jess Keating.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
I know. So to be able to sit there and watch him and watch her and talk to her, and we read one of her books together, it was a very unique experience. Yeah.
Did your students then get to watch this? You shared that out with your families during the pandemic?
And I invited them to come in and listen.
Got it.
Yeah. So,
but it's also on YouTube, so we can all go back and see it. But wait, there's more, because that wasn't he tapped you again. Is that correct?
Yes. And this time it was with Jeff Kinney and one of my students. Yes.
So wait, you had a student with you. Did John pick the student? How did this all happen?
So John actually asked me to use my school in order for him to record a CBS Good This Morning show, because they wanted to interview the ambassador of school librarians, and he chose my library as the one to be in. So I chose students from each grade level that they were also interviewed. And so one of them, his name was Nathan, and he was also interviewed. And they just made this connection. And he talked to him John talked to Nathan a lot. And every time he would come back to visit, he would seek him out to give him another book. And they just grew in this relationship that they had, right? And so when it was time to have this Book Joy Live with Jeff Kinney, he said, let's have Nathan, because that was one of the books that he was always giving him. And so Nathan was just, smiling from ear to ear. He just was so happy because
I watched it. He was, a smile ear to ear. And he got to meet Jeff Kinney. Of course, he's now reading all of his books, and he's got this hero sitting. And of course, it was very exciting that you were part of this conversation as well. But again, a pandemic solution to something that would have otherwise probably not happened in your space, I'm guessing.
Exactly. But there was one time that Jeff Kinney actually, so I have something in my library called a selfie station. And the kids take pictures of themselves and the books that they're reading as they're leaving or whatever. And they're pretty goofy most of the time, but a lot of times they're pretty serious. So when I see that a student has a book that they really love, I will tweet that out to the author. And so for Nathan, I tweeted him out. And so that's how they made that other connection together. So that was important, again, for Nathan to understand that they're real people. So what he did from that, when I would share those tweets out, he contacted me and said, I would love for your students to see my studio and I will talk to them. Yeah. So he did. We met with all my third graders on a Zoom or whatever it was we were using at the time. And they just thought that was the neatest thing ever. He drew for them. He talked to them. They could ask questions. And again, making them appreciate that authors are real people.
What a win. Now everybody's like, okay, go back up and talk about the selfie station. Because, so first of all, the selfie station, what would I see if I saw it in your library? Did you position something? Is it in a corner? Tell me what I would see. How did you set this up?
So I have my circulation desk. I have 3 spots where the kids can go and check out books. But next to one of them, I have a mounted iPad. And it has on there a little sign that says, selfie station, take a picture of you and your books. And so they do. And that's how they do that. And I go back sometimes and I look at those pictures and I think, wow.
Oh my gosh.
They're having a great time with this. They love it.
Well, and then bridge that, make that connection for me. How then do you go about looking at the pictures and knowing you have permission to share it out on social media? School librarians want to know, how did you make that leap from, I have a photo that I want to share on social media, but we have parents and we have administrators. What did you have to do to make this possible?
So first off, I was just doing it for my own pleasure because I think my camera is one of my favorite tools in the library. Okay. So, but when I come across one that is incredible and I'm like, I have to share this, we have a listing of everyone that has permission to be on social media or not. And as long as I'm not using their first name associated with that photo, I'm okay. But I have had several where I didn't have permission. So I just simply contact the family and I say, this picture I would love to be able to share on Twitter, but you don't have permission granted for your children. Would it be okay? And do you know, I've only ever once been turned down. He said, we'd rather them not be. It's okay. It's okay. I, want to ask. But 9 times out of 10, they say, of course. And so when I do, and when the author responds, I share that response with the kids. And I'm one girl, I just remember, she said, she responded to me. I said, yes, she did. And I give them the picture of the tweet, and so they can keep that. And I'm telling you, they're making reading buddies for life.
Wow. So so forgive me. Do you use the student's name in the tweet or no? Like the first name, no name. Okay.
No.
Okay. So friends, the only thing I can sort of say similarly, I had an opportunity. My students were putting on a play last spring, and it was the Radium Girls, which, by the way, super heavy topic. It's a very heavy topic, but there's a book. And so what I did was I put it out on Twitter that my students were performing the Radium Girls. The book is by Kate Moore, and I included the author's name in the tweet. And Kate Moore responds to my tweet, says, break a leg, everybody. And, I blew it up and I put it on, actually, not even in the Learning Commons, I put it in the hall. So everybody walking through had to see that the author told our students to break a leg at the school play that night. And it was so much fun. But honestly, that validation that what our students are doing has meaning to the people who created these pieces of literature. It'll probably be remembered forever. They will never forget this.
They will never forget it.
And I love that you give them a hard copy. Then maybe they could put it in their locker or at home in a memory book, or keep it as a keepsake, because they're like,
it's like, this was special to me. I know.
Oh my goodness. So I want to keep on going because I love everything I hear. You say here that your camera is your favorite tool. And it sounds like you use it for other things as well. I mean, and I don't know if you want to talk about that right now, but what else do you like, in addition to sharing out the selfie station? What other things would you be using your camera to document and then to showcase to your, not just your parent community, but obviously to the larger community?
So I use my phone camera, to just take shots of students reading in the library. I like them to be candid. I don't like the posed ones because I want to catch them reading, right? And so I have this one little area. It's an A-framed book holder, and there's a lion underneath it. The kids go under there to read, and sometimes they're reading together, and so I catch that. They don't even know that I'm really doing it, right? And or they're sitting on the chairs or the couches, or they're on the floor, or they're upside down, or even checking out the books. I take those pictures, and then I will send it to parents to let them know what's happening in the library with their child that day. And the parents appreciate that too. So not only do you have a relationship or a connection with the students, but you have it with their family as well, because they'll never know what was going on. They'd never see those pictures if I didn't share them, right?
Which makes all the sense in the world with it when I read you this next part of her, sort of these accolades as to why she is the Illinois Librarian of the Year for 2022. Rhonda Jenkins is a one-woman public relations program promoting school librarianship at Kendall Elementary Library, her district, her state, and her country. And it says Rhonda's efforts, assisted by technology, lift school librarians in Illinois and beyond, helping others become better librarians, ultimately resulting in more students who love to learn and read.
Oh, see, very humbling. Oh,
That's amazing. I know that you're not done. I know you're not going to kick back and say, oh, done and dusted. We have to talk about your podcast.
Oh. Yeah.
So I was curious to learn more about another program you have in your space because your students are podcasters, thanks to you.
So for the last 2 years, I've had, I just offer to fifth graders because a little more advanced. They know how to write emails to invite teachers or whomever it is they want to interview to ask, right? And we meet every Tuesday for the entire year, pretty much, and after school for about an hour, and they can go and interview. I wrote a grant, actually, for equipment from our Indian Prairie Education Foundation, and I was actually awarded that, so I was able to get the equipment necessary to record, and yeah, it's interesting. So the first year, my first group, everyone, I won't say that everyone was outstanding. Everybody did a good job when they put their heart into it. But that first year, there was an NPR contest. They have one for students. And so fifth grade and up is one category. So one of my students, her podcast was so lovely. It moved me to tears. And it was, if you could change one thing to make the world a better place, what would that be? And she asked several people, and then her uncle, because they have original music, her uncle wrote music for her to play in there. And her voice, the sound, it was just amazing. And she actually got honorable mention that year. So that was a success for us. And I really appreciate that. So their topics, they could be anything that they want. We brainstorm because really it's theirs. I'm their guide. It's yours. If this is what you want to do, but then sometimes it's like, to rethink that one a little bit, because they wanted to know all the negative things that people had to say. No, we don't want to encourage negativity. We want to encourage positivity. And so each week they come together and record or talk or chit-chat or figure out what we need to do for the next one. And it's been great.
If I were to see this club in action, and, the brainstorming, it sounds fantastic. Keeping it positive sounds fantastic. You're providing some guardrails because you got to make sure they're still children, but we have to keep this appropriate. But what does this equipment look like? Are they passing a mic back and forth? When the students are sitting, are they each talking into a different mic? What is recording? What is, how is this all being captured?
So that was the original plan because that's the kind of equipment that we received the grant for them to have the one little unit and then all the mics plugged into it. But every time I tried to use it, it didn't work. That we'd only hear one voice.
Right.
And so then they'd have to do it over again. So I have to still get my nephew, who's my editor now, for me to come in and help us out with the equipment. So in the meantime, what we did, because that wasn't working the best way possible, we just use an iPad. And they just put it down on the table in front of them, and then they record back and forth using voice note.
Wonderful. So you do bring in somebody to do some editing, and that's great. I, as somebody who edits a podcast, if there was something I could hand over to somebody else, I'd happily do it. There's a learning curve, and I'm YouTube trained, as some of you have probably figured out. But, I love it. Give me some ideas of some of the things that they did outside of, did they talk to any of your staff members? Did they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, at what point were they going around and interviewing other people in the school?
So they would always have to, whenever we set up the ideas that and who they wanted to interview. So then they would sit and I tell them, you need to form an email and you need to request it and ask if they're available for the next week on Tuesday after school to meet with you. They had to copy me on it so that I can see what they've written and to whom it's going. And usually, most of the times it was not a problem. They would set their appointment and they would go right after school then and go talk to that person in their office or in another classroom that was empty, right, for that time. Yeah. So they've interviewed the principal, they interviewed me, the art teacher, the gym teacher, different grade levels. They've interviewed more than one teacher at a time. They've interviewed students, they've interviewed each other. So been a lot.
What have you done to protect their privacy? How is your podcast shared so that the families are able to enjoy this, all the while protecting the privacy of the students because they are minors?
So my biggest thing for them is when they are recording to not say their last name. Because we talk about that confidentiality, private information and personal information, right? And I want them to understand, if your name is Arvin, there are thousands of Arvins, so they don't know which one in particular. So it's okay to say your first name, but not your last name. So that's one of my biggest training points. So if it's not, then we need to edit that out, right? So that's how I protect that. We do use Anchor, and then with Anchor can connect to iPod too, and so that's where it all goes out. And then I also share the links then with a weekly newsletter from the principal to families.
Wonderful. Well, and again, being the reason why this happens, you can't ignore the fact that the school librarian is the one who's making all this possible.
True. I know, and it's a tough job sometimes because, kids will be kids, and sometimes they're not prepared or they don't want to do it but then you just have to continue. You signed up and you said you were going to be the one to do this. And they really are proud when they hear it and when it's done,
So Rhonda, would it be okay if we put a link to an episode in our show notes? Because I know there are school librarians going, they do an elementary podcast? That'd be amazing.
Absolutely. I would definitely share one with you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. You've done so many amazing things. What are some, right now we are, you and I are still on a summer break. What are some things that you're looking forward to doing when the school year starts? Because, you've been recognized for all the amazing things that you do. I know there are amazing things you want to continue, like your podcast and your selfie station. What are some things that you want to make sure to do because it's something that really does support your students and your teachers?
Last year, so we have old school buildings, right? Not too old, but we didn't have air. And I am in this, all of our libraries in the elementary level are all in the center of the building. No walls on the outside, just the front and the back. And then all the classrooms are right on the side. So they can close their doors and they'll have air, but we're dying in the middle. But in November, they closed my library. They were rotating through all the libraries, and they got to mine in November. I had to completely close it for an entire month, remove everything from it, and then they installed the air conditioning units. Woo! Okay? So that was exciting. But the month of November, I have a program pretty much I have something planned for each month. And November is National Picture Book Month. So we would have a contest to see how many picture books we could read. And whichever classroom read the most, their teacher would get $250 in Scholastic dollars to buy books for their classroom library. So we missed that this past year. So I need to make that up this coming year. So that's one thing for November. That's my goal to repair.
So let's talk about this, this interclass competition. Because this isn't about students, individual student achievement. This is about a team effort, correct? And is the reading happening during library or during school time, or are the kids coming to you and saying, I read 3 books last night, or I read 4 books last night? How is the tally happening with the classes? Are they reporting to you or to their classroom teachers?
They report to me. But here's the thing. When we talk about it, when I present it to them and say, this is what's happening next month, this is an honesty-based thing. So don't inflate it because you want your teacher to win, because that's just not fair. And if you tell me that in 1 week, because I have a Google form that they submitted in, okay? They put their name, they put the number of books that they've read for that week. And and some of the time I look at it and I think, you did not read 1,000 books last week. So I had once said, yes, I did. Well, it's not humanly possible, my friend. Okay, so it's okay. Just I won't count this week, but just make sure that you're really counting completely, for the next month. So what's very interesting is, yes, the young ones want their teacher to win, but so do the older kids. So for 2 years now, a 4th grade teacher has won. Previous, right? So, and then when we have a 3rd book fair, and that's a buy one, get one free. So it almost doubles their money for books for their library for the next year. And so the kids are very, where are we? And I always submit it and share it in an announcement as to which team is winning and which teacher is winning. So they love it.
I love a couple of things about this. First of all, you've gamified it. You have created you're tapping into that competitive nature that our students have, and they continue to have that. And I know at an elementary level, there is, anytime you can turn this into a game, you're going to get a lot of kids to participate and generate that energy. I also love that it does require you to channel that moral compass. Our students, especially our littles and elementary students, have such a strong moral compass. They don't always keep it, but but isn't it nice when you can create that opportunity to remind students about that integrity piece, that talking about integrity and being honest about what we are relaying to the librarian and why that's so important. And so I think that's amazing. And again, you get the teachers' buy-in, because they're the ones who are going to benefit from this. It sounds like a wonderfully effective way to build a sort of reading culture. And especially because last year it didn't happen, I bet this is going to be like the buildup for this is going to be huge.
Huge, yeah. But what I also love too, it's not just, they can't count their teacher reading to them. It has to be someone else. So if I come, because I'm not their teacher, I can read to them. They can count, everyone can count me as that book. Then they can check out as many books as they want from the library, go home and read with their siblings. So there's more family things going on as well, encouraging the older ones to read with the younger ones. And then also for parents to read to them. So those are the books that they can count, as long as they're picture books.
Forgive me, but I would then also, because obviously their teacher can't do the reading, but couldn't they have a guest reader? So maybe the principal has to be reading a book. Or if you have a liaison officer, or if you have a social worker, or you have, I don't know, maybe the music teacher is on their prep and they can come and read. I mean, I could see this becoming rather like, and we sort of get those photos out into the, and when all of a sudden you've got all these people reading to the classes because they're guest readers.
And then when they count, I give them a tally sheet so that each week they can count them all up and then go to that Google form and submit them. So anybody except your teacher, and if she gives you 20 minutes that you'd like to read, drop down and read,
Yep.
Whatever you used to call it,
drop
right?
everything and what do you call it? Dear, drop everything and read. Yeah.
Your time. That's right. Then they can count all those books as well. So, and I have lots of visits to the library during that time. So it's just a great time for the love of reading to just
That's amazing.
blossom.
Rhonda Jenkins, I am so glad. 3 years is a long time to wait. and I appreciate your patience and your understanding. Being one of our summer guests, I've already mentioned that it's not easy to find librarians who are ready to just get back into that librarian mode after being on break for a while. But you've given us so many wonderful ideas. Rhonda Jenkins, would you let listeners know how can we add you to our PLN? Because you and I have obviously been crisscrossing the Twitter sphere for 3 years now. But how can listeners find you? Where's the best place to follow you and all the good things that you do?
Twitter. One, I love to teach tech, LUV, the digit 2, teach tech. On Instagram, I love to teach tech. And then I'm also on TikTok. My TikTok is I love to make tumblers.
Got it. All right. Does your school have an account that we
And
should
Facebook,
follow?
of course.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Does your school have, when you post for your school, do you use a separate account for them?
I just use I love to teach tech for that. I mean, love to teach tech for that one for me. But we also have Kendall Patriots, I believe it's called. Kendall Elementary Patriots or something. Sorry.
Okay. Got
Kendall
it. No.
Patriots. Yeah.
No, we're good. You know what? If just following you, that's all we need to do.
Okay.
That's all we need to
Yeah.
do. Oh my gosh. Rhonda Jenkins, thank you.
No, thank you. You do a fantastic job. I love listening to you. You've got a great soothing voice. So you keep doing what you're doing too, because we appreciate you as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, you make this easy when all we get to do is talk about the amazing things that obviously the librarians have noticed in the state of Illinois. The people in Illinois know that you are a library leader for the entire state. You're holding up this gold standard for all librarians in the state of Illinois, and raising that profile of what school librarians do and how much we matter to our buildings and to our school communities. Thank you so much, and I hope our paths cross again, and it's not in 3 years.
Right, for sure.
Have a good one. Thanks so much, Rhonda.
You too. Thank you.
As with all the episodes which are being recorded and shared out over the summer months, I am so grateful to Rhonda and all my guests whose generosity of their time and talents made these episodes possible. If you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving some fan mail to Rhonda and adding her to your virtual PLN. One last friendly reminder, use the code UNITED to take advantage of Capstone's generous $20 discount off an order of $100 or more, and schedule your first Literati Book Fair for this upcoming school year and receive a $500 Titlewave gift card. As always, there are links in the show notes. The topic of our next episode will be AASL's 2023 School Library of the Year and my conversation with Carrie Betts. I hope you will tune in.